It's Katie from Blueprint Games, and in this tutorial I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be working inside Unreal. It's a very short tutorial on just making a nighttime scene like the one you see here. So we're going to focus on making this moon here in the background, the atmosphere around the moon, and perhaps just also setting up the nighttime scene so that you've got good lighting. So without any further ado, let's get started. So we're going to start off by making the moon. This is my personal method for what I did to make the one in Unreal that you saw previously. There might be better methods out there, but I haven't seen a lot on the internet yet. So this is just what I figured out for myself. So start off by getting into 3ds Max or your 3D modeling program of choice and create a standard primitive, like so, and make a sphere, like so. Now you can change how big you want it here, just change some of the numbers around, sort of get what you want. Maybe you want less segments because you really want to conserve on the poly count, but for now I'm just going to keep it 32. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this in half, because even though this is, the moon is a sphere, we only really need half of it because you're not going to see the other half. So there's no point in rendering those extra polygons. So we're going to chop it in half. Ooh, that's the wrong button. Slice. So you turn on slice on, and then we're going to bring that out, and we're going to change that to 180 to make that a half, like so. So we've now got half a sphere. Actually, that's quite a few segments. Maybe I want to bring that down a bit. 30 should be okay. Alright, so that's our mesh for our moon. So I'm just going to convert this to an editable poly. Right click, convert to. And now what we need to do is we just want to apply a texture to this. So I've already got a texture I've prepared. And I will put a link in the description that you can use to download the texture that I'm going to be using. And you have full permission to use this however you wish. Right, okay, let me just find my texture. Here's my moon texture. Just plop it on like that. Probably should have explained what I was doing a little bit better there. Go to Rendering, Material Editor, Compact Material Editor, click, and then to get your texture, I'll do it on the new one, click on here, and then come to Diffuse, click this button here, click Bitmap, and find your texture, and double click, and then just drag on, so, drag it like so onto your model. Okay, now we can't actually see the moon texture on the sphere, so just go to, click here, down to Materials, Shaded Materials with Maps, click, and there you go. Now let's just take a look on this on the UV template to make sure this is unwrapped correctly. So what you need to do is go to your modifier list here, click this, press U, find Unwrap UVW, and click. And open up your UV editor by clicking Edit UVs like that. And I think this looks a bit like a mess for a UV template, so I'm going to select all these polygons. Make sure you've got this turned on, select all that. And I'm just going to do a planar projection. Clicking this on the projection tab. And let's do that in the X axis, like so. And now let's check that on the moon. So go here, check a pattern, click moon. And that looks about right. Let's fit and center. And now let's collapse this UV template down. So right click, collapse to, yes. And there you go, you've got your moon all nice and unwrapped, like so. Okay, so now I'm going to click this and I'm going to export that out, ready to bring into Unreal. So we go here, to your thing here, export, export selected, and I'll just save that to my desktop, moon, and you can save it as an FBX. So save, okay. Okay, now let's move into Unreal Engine. So we're going into Unreal now, so start a new project, and let's start with a blank template. And choose somewhere where you want to save your project. I'm going to save that somewhere else, I think. And let's just call that Moon Template. Create project. Okay, so here's our basic template project. And let's start by importing our moon mesh. So go into starter content. Let's go to props, and let's import by going to file. Actually, no, sorry. Go down to here, import, and go find your moon where you've saved it. So I'm just going to find my moon mesh. I think I saved it on the desktop. Yeah, there we are. Yeah, why not? Bring in the texture. Import. If it didn't ask you to bring up the texture, you can just import and then look for your texture and bring that in as well. Okay, so here's our moon. We need to do some changes to the material now that we've got. So what you need to do if you haven't got a material made for you by the program, just go right click on your texture and go to create material, like so, and then you can name it moon_matte, and let's double click. And I'm going to change this slightly because with the moon, obviously it glows because of the sun reflecting off the moon. So we need to make some changes to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some changes. I'm going to make it an unlit shading model. Then I'm going to break the link here, right click, break link. And then I'm going to take this and plug that into emissive color, like so. And save. Okay. Now let's bring our moon mesh out. Bring that up. And let's apply our new matte. Just drag and plop that on top, like so. Right, now what I did next was I took this right into the sky. So I literally just kept expanding this until it was huge. Like actually massive. And then I took it right into the sky. So I went right up to where the skybox is. So let's just keep zooming out. Like so. And just kept making it bigger. In fact, let's just make the changes on the actual transform here so I don't just waste my time. So let's make this, let's try 2000, 2000, 2000. There we go. You can see the moon there. It's a little bit low to the ground, but obviously it depends where you want in your scene, where you want your moon to be. Maybe it's sort of coming up through the horizon, but I'm just going to bring that right into the sky. Like so. Oh, it's gone through the skybox, sky sphere. Right, now obviously you see something a bit weird here is that we're only seeing half of the moon here because it's made that weird shape. So just sort of rotate it so that it's facing the camera. Like so. There you go. Right, actually I think it needs to come down. Yeah, there you go. It might be a bit smaller, it depends, it's personal preference. Obviously the moon isn't that big. Ooh. No, I've just deleted it. Ugh, clumsy fingers. Right, so we've got our moon there. What we need to do next is we want to set up an atmosphere around the moon to make that sort of glowy effect. And then we also want to get rid of the sun. So let's start off by sorting out our, getting rid of the sun here. So click on your sky sphere and let's change the sun brightness to 0. Get rid of that sun. And then what I'm going to do is mess around with our light source. And I think I'm going to change that to a 0.5. And change the light colour to something like a light blue. Like so. And then click back on the sky sphere, and I think I changed it so that there was no actual directional light actor affecting the scene. I need to change the sun height, and that's going to affect what kind of day it is. So at the moment we're at midday down, and there we go, nighttime. Now you see that the moon, because we've added an emissive map to it, it's sort of glowing, and our eye exposure is set so that obviously it starts to glow like that, but if you look away and then look back, it sort of brightens up again. And we can change that if you want. It's all down to personal preference. I'll take you through the post-processing effects I did on my current scene. I personally prefer that you can look at the moon and all the little details, because it's not really the sun, but you know. Okay, so I'm just going to bring in something else. So I go to my lights and I'm going to add a skylight to the scene, like so. Okay, and then another thing that I did was I brought this light source right up to the moon, and maybe you don't need to do it like that, maybe it was just me being silly, but I went to my moon and I went to the locations and I literally just copied and pasted these locations straight in here, like so. There's my little light source. And then changed it like that. And then the final one in the Z. I don't think I've got all of that there. Right. There you go. And then let's just go up to my light source, double click, bring it up to focus. Ooh. Speed up the camera here. Ooh. There we go. Made our way inside the moon. And then let's just drag that out. And I just did this for sort of personal preferences. And then I made sure that it was pointing in the direction that our moon is facing, like so. So tiny. Anyway, yeah. So let's focus back on our main scene. Double click one of your static meshes and just focus back in there. Okay, so some of the things that I did, I also changed some post-processing effects just to sort of darken down the scene, and I also changed some world settings. Okay, so to get to your world settings, we're going to have to make a few adjustments. So you go to your world settings tab like this, click there. If it's not showing, just go to window and click world settings to show that. And then we just want to change the environment color, so just click here and let's go down to a nice black color. Maybe darker than that. Okay. And then I want to change the environment intensity to 0.5. And then I want to use ambient inclusion. I was recording just to figure something out. Obviously some of you might want a completely dark scene, and what you need to do to get that is delete the two lights that I put into the scene, which was the skylight and the light that we shoved all the way up here. And then I rebuilt the lighting, and this is sort of the effect you get, so it's pretty much just pitch back, like so. So as long as you follow the settings up to that point and you get rid of all the lighting in the scene, then that's what you're going to get. I'm just going to pop these back in anyway, but it depends what you want, obviously. So I'm just going to put back in my directional light as well. Probably won't shove it up to the moon this time. It's kind of unnecessary, I think. I think I mostly did it because I was trying to get a good effect for when you looked at the moon, you'd get the light shafts. If you want to put it up there, go ahead. Okay, put that back. I'm going to change the light colour back to a light blue. I'm going to put this to a 0.4, I think. Maybe lower. depends how dark you want it to be. Okay. Yeah, maybe a bit more lower. Sort of experiment until you find something that you think is good enough. Maybe a 0.2. Okay, now you want to add some post-processing effects. So go to your volumes, and you want to add a post-process volume. So just drag that out like so. And then I'm just going to make sure that this is unbound. So come to your post-processing volumes and tick unbound. And that just means that you don't need to be inside the square to add effects. It's just going to apply it everywhere. If you want it only in a certain area of the map, then untick unbound and just make the volume as big as the area you want it to be, where it's affecting the character. Obviously you might have different scenes, so maybe you want to have a different post-processing effect for a lava scene compared to a night scene or a day scene. Okay, so let's go to our post-process settings, and let's go to film, and I added a tint shadow, a tint shadow B, a tint shadow A, and a saturation, and then I added the tint to a blue color, like so. And then I changed this to 0, and I made this a 0.15. I changed the saturation to a 1.2, just to make it have a little bit more colour going on for it. And then I wanted to crush the shadows, contrast, and crush highlights. So contrast I had at 0.1, crush shadows I did at 0.75, and crush highlights I did at 1. Oh, and I did dynamic range too, so that's a 4. Okay. Then we want to affect the scene color. So scene color, I just made it a bit more blue, like so. Now, we're starting to look a bit more like my scene that I had set up at the start. We still have the issue with the moon adjusting to the eye, which is under... Let me find it. Blub, 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 blub. Auto exposure. Duh. Okay. So speed up, speed down, max brightness, min brightness. Okay, so this is affecting the minimum brightness and maximum brightness and how fast your eye adjusts to the light. So I changed minimum brightness to be 1.5. And I changed the max brightness to be a 2. And then I changed that to 1 and a 1. Like so. And that sort of just stops the eye adjusting to get that really big white intense colour like we did before. And I changed the exposure bias to a 0. Like so. Okay, so now we need to add the atmosphere around the moon. And we're going to do that by making a new material. And what else? Oh yeah, we might want to add as well a where is it? A color grading, which is what I added to my scene as well. Okay, let's just look at the scene color a bit more. Yeah, that's alright. Okay, so let's make our atmosphere. I will give you this texture as well, but if you want to make your own texture, I'll explain how you do it. Okay, let's import a new texture. Import. Atmosphere. Okay, so this is our atmosphere texture. And the way I made this is I just went to Photoshop and I did a gradient. So a white gradient fading out to black. If I understand some people might not have Photoshop, so I'm just going to give you this texture as is. It depends if you just want to make your own. And now we need to make this into a material to make our atmosphere. So right click, create material, and this is our atmosphere material. Double click. Okay, so what we need to do is we want to have a nice glowy effect, and we're going to be using the opacity as well. So let's just expand that. Okay, so we need to start by changing what kind of lighting this is. So you want to go to here, opaque, and let's make that translucent. And let's just disconnect this. So right click, break link. And then we want to bring in a multiply. So right click and type in multiply, like so. Enter. Wait 1 minute. Is this like a new version of Unreal? I haven't used it before. It hasn't had that there before, but okay. And then we want to add a param. A vector param. So right click, type in param, and pick vector param. And then we want to make this into a pure white color. So just double click on your default value, bring it up to white. Okay. And let's plug that into B. Plug that into A. Oops. Plug that into A. And then we want to plug this one into the emissive color. And then we use this one for our opacity. And then we take a look at that. And save. Okay. Now we're going to add a gigantic plane behind the moon. There are probably better ways to do this, like when you're sculpting the moon, maybe you just want to add an additional material that will go around. It's actually attached to your mesh, but I just decided to do this quickly because I was sort of experimenting at the time, and this worked for me quite well. So go to shapes and select a shape plane. Oh, just drag that out, and I'm just going to go into unlit mode for now. So come down here, unlit. Okay, now where's our material? I think it was in textures. There you go. And apply your atmosphere matte like so. Okay. And then we can make this bigger. Probably a lot bigger. Let's start by rotating it. Like so. And then what I did was I literally just placed it right behind the moon. And maybe it's better just to do the moon small first with the atmosphere plane set up behind it, and then bring them up together so that you've got them perfectly aligned, but I didn't think ahead. Right, so let's zoom out. And let's bring it behind the moon. Like so. And let's just really increase the size here on the scale, so let's try 2000 for now. Going to be a lot bigger. Let's try 8000. And let's rotate that so it's not just going out of the skybox. And drag that behind the moon, like so. Let's bring that forward a bit. Just sort of position that behind the moon like so. And maybe you want to make this a little bit more big, if you really want the nice effect going on there. Oh gosh, that's too much. There we go. Try 9000. That looks alright. Maybe you want to bring this moon forward a bit, because it's really close to the skybox. Like so. So we've got a nice atmosphere going. Let's go back to lit mode. There we go. I might decide to just keep fidgeting with this, and so can you. You know, just find what works for you. Maybe you want to make this even bigger. What I did next is I worked on making it so that this appeared more obvious in the scene by using color grading on post-processing volume, which is down here on color grading, and I will cover that quickly. You're going to need Photoshop or another sort of photo editing program that you can use. So what you need to do is just start by taking a screenshot, so press G, and then F11 to get your full screen mode, and just sort of set it up like that. And maybe you want to wait until you start doing all these processing effects, because you might want to set up your scene first, because obviously depending on what you've got in your scene, you might decide later that you don't like how the color grading looks or any of the post-processing effects. But obviously we're just doing this for this lesson, so I'll just show you how to do it. So just print screen to get your picture, and then let's just get out of the full screen mode with F11, G to bring back up all our stuff, and now we're going to move into Photoshop. You just want to open your image into Photoshop. Sorry if this tutorial, by the way, is being a little bit odd. I've just upgraded to Windows 10 and I'm having a couple of problems getting used to it, but hopefully things will sort themselves out soon. So this tutorial is a little bit wonky because opening Photoshop for some reason was more difficult. User error, I'm sure. Okay, so now that you've brought your scene into Photoshop, you want to find the color grading lookup table that Unreal has, and you can find it through their documentation that they have on their website, but I can make a link below in the description to show you where it is so you can download your own. Okay. And we just want to open that up in its own separate file. Got a lot of stuff here. There we go. Like so. So that's our RBG table that I've got off the website. And now what we're going to do is we're going to make some changes to the document. So start by adding a folder, and this is where you're going to add all your adjustments that you make. So let's start with perhaps maybe you want to play with the color. So we could go to oh yeah, let me just explain. So click here, like so, and then go to color balance, and then we can perhaps play with the colors a bit. So maybe you want to have a more of a greeny look to the scene. Obviously you want to make very light changes, don't go completely insane, but maybe you want to go for a more bluish color here and sort of balance out the colors a bit. Maybe we want to adjust the levels here, so maybe I want to go here and sort of, this is what I did in my last one, but I really sort of brought the levels down here and sort of really brought the moon out because I really wanted it to be a key feature. You can do all sorts of adjustments, so if you're a bit of a whiz with Photoshop, just go completely nuts and find something that looks good. Like, you could literally just completely change the theme of the scene. You could add gradient maps if you wanted, like so. Like, we could go completely nuts. Like, you could go for something that looks like this, if you really wanted to. Maybe you want to overlay that. Go for something soft. I think I'm just going to stick with boring old moon, but you can do what you want. Now that you've done that, just take your group, and we want to copy this and paste it into. Oh, it's not what I meant to do. I want to copy the group. What I'll do is I'll bring this down like so, so that it's its own little. And there we go, just drag it in like that. Oop. Not my day. Put that back in like that. So now that I've brought this group in that affects the color lookup table, you can see how that has changed it if I was to hide it and hide the group. And now we want to save this and bring it into Unreal. So what you want to do is you just want to go to Save As, and I'm going to save this to my desktop just so we can find it easy later. And I'm going to save that as a PNG, and we don't want this to be compressed because every little pixel counts as far as the color lookup table goes. So compression, none. Okay. So now that we've saved out our color lookup table, we want to bring that into Unreal. So just come to Import and find where you've saved your color lookup table and bring that in. Now the problem here is that it's not going to work straight away, because if we went and we turned on color grading and we dropped that in like so, it looks nothing like our Photoshop document. So this is a really important step here. So you need to double click your table and you need to make some changes because you can see how this has been sort of messed around with by Unreal and it sort of compressed things, and we need every single pixel because it's really important. It needs all that data. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by going to MIP Gen settings, and we're just going to change that to no MIP maps. Then we're going to go to our texture group, and we are going to change that to a color lookup table. And then the final thing we want to do is just come down to compression, and we want to defer compression, and just save that. Okay? And then what we have to do is drag it in like so into our color grading, and it's made the changes just like how we did in Photoshop. Magic. I remember finding this out for the first time and I just thought it was amazing, because I'm much better with Photoshop than I am with Unreal, so it's a lot easier to sort of play around with your settings and get the look that you want. So obviously you can keep adjusting things and changing the color of things, and just keep trying to find the look that suits you. Hopefully some of the things that I spoke about can help you with other things, other projects like the post-processing volume. Another thing that I did in the previous Unreal thing that I showed you was sorry, someone disrupted me in my video, I had to pause it. Yeah, so hopefully this is what you wanted, just some things that I haven't covered quickly that you can mess around in post-processing. So what I also did was I came to the directional light, and I included light shaft occlusion, and I sort of played around with the bloom tint and stuff like that, so when you looked at the moon you'd sort of get these lovely god rays and light shafts. So perhaps play around with your settings a bit, maybe you don't want that, but I brought that all the way up to the top of the moon, and maybe you want to sort of adjust that so that you're getting the right sort of angle there. But yeah, hopefully that's sort of the night scene that you were hoping for. You can see how much the post-processing effects have, because if you untick the unbound, I think it looks a lot nicer like this. I might do a separate tutorial on post-processing effects later on, just to sort of talk about ambient occlusion and a bit about focal depth of field, because you've got all these different depth of field options, or lens flare, a bit more about bloom maybe, but since this is just wanting to get the night sky, I didn't really cover everything. You can also change a couple of other things as well, if you want to just quickly go through these with me. We can change the cloud speed. We could change the opacity of the clouds, get a really like cloudy night going on here. You could also add some other things, like some visual effects, like maybe you want to have an atmospheric fog or an exponential height fog, but you'll need to make some changes. So maybe you want to make this a lot darker, and maybe you want to also make the fog density a lot less. But obviously it sort of plays around with the colour, and you might want to try this out before you start doing the post-processing effects, because you obviously, as I said before, it's going to, you kind of want your whole scene before you start doing the whole colour lookup table, at least I think so. And but yeah, that's just how I did the moon night scene that I showed to you before. So I hope you found this useful, and if you have any questions, please don't be afraid to ask, and I will be happy to try and help you with those. So don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.